The Bible Study Podcast, Episode 30. Today we go back to the book of Exodus and look at the 10 plagues. In the last two episodes, we started looking at the life of Moses, especially Exodus chapters 1 through 4, which deal with Moses' birth, his exile from Egypt, and then his calling from God in the burning bush and all the excuses that he put up with. In this particular episode, I want to look at how God used Moses and Aaron to deliver the Israelites from Egypt. And so we're going to pick up this story starting in Exodus 7. And I'm not going to read all of this because this particular story covers several chapters. So starting in chapter 7, verse 8, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "When Pharaoh says to you, 'Perform a miracle,' then say to Aaron, 'Take your staff and throw it down before Pharaoh, and it will become a snake.' So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did just as the Lord commanded. Aaron threw his staff down in front of Pharaoh and his officials, and it became a snake. Pharaoh then summoned wise men and sorcerers, and the Egyptian magicians did the same thing with their secret arts. Each one threw down his staff, and it became a snake. But Aaron's staff swallowed up their staffs. Yet Pharaoh's heart became hard, and he would not listen to them, just as the Lord had said. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Pharaoh's heart is unyielding. He refuses to let the people go. Go to Pharaoh in the morning as he goes out to the water. Wait on the bank of the Nile to meet him, and take in your hand the staff that was changed into a snake. Then say to him, 'The Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has sent me to say to you, let my people go, so that they may worship me in the desert. But until now you have not listened. This is what the Lord says. By this you will know that I am the Lord. With the staff that is in my hand I will strike the water of the Nile, and it will be changed into blood. The fish in the Nile will die, and the river will stink. The Egyptians will not be able to drink its water." The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron, take your staff and stretch out your hand over the waters of Egypt, over the streams and canals, over the ponds and all the reservoirs, and they will turn to blood. Blood will be everywhere in Egypt, even in the wooden buckets and stone jars." Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord had commanded. He raised his staff in the presence of Pharaoh and his officials and struck the waters of the Nile, and all the water was changed into blood. The fish in the Nile died, and the river smelled so bad that the Egyptians could not drink its water. Blood was everywhere in Egypt. But the Egyptian magicians did the same thing by their secret arts, and Pharaoh's heart became hard, and he would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said. Instead he turned and went into his palace, and did not take even this to heart. And all the Egyptians dug along the Nile to get drinking water, because they could not drink the water of the river. The first thing that I find interesting in these passages, besides the fact that it's not going very well, is that in the first two plagues, and also the sign of the staff becoming a snake, the magicians could do the same thing, and so Pharaoh's not impressed. This is a parlor trick, he's thinking. And so he doesn't change his mind. And that ends then with the third plague. Skipping over the plague of frogs, in the next chapter, in chapter 8, starting in verse 16, we get this short passage. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron, stretch out your staff and strike the dust of the ground, and throughout the land of Egypt the dust will become gnats." They did this, and when Aaron stretched out his hand with the staff and struck the dust of the ground, gnats came upon men and animals. All the dust throughout the land of Egypt became gnats. And when the magicians tried to produce gnats by their secret arts, they could not, and the gnats were on men and animals. The magicians said to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." But Pharaoh's heart was hard and would not listen, just as the Lord had said. So this is the third plague, and finally we get to the point where the magicians say, "We can't do this. This isn't a parlor trick. This is God." And so they already understand that Aaron and Moses are being sent by God, but Pharaoh doesn't believe yet. And the magicians are only mentioned one more time, and that's when, during the plague of boils, they're covered with boils and they won't even come into Pharaoh's presence. So they're pretty much out of the picture. It's just Pharaoh and Pharaoh's hardness of heart at this point. We should be clear that what they're asking for at this point is just let us go out in the desert to sacrifice to God. They're not yet saying let us go free. And so in the next plague, for instance, the plague of flies comes, and Pharaoh says, "Go sacrifice to your God here in the land." But Moses said that would not be right. The sacrifice we offer to the Lord our God would be detestable to the Egyptians. And if we offer sacrifices that are detestable in their eyes, will they not stone us? We must take a 3-day journey into the desert to offer sacrifices to the Lord our God, as he commands us. Pharaoh said, "I will let you go to offer sacrifices to the Lord your God in the desert, but you must not go very far. Now pray for me." And Moses answered, "As soon as I leave, I will pray to God, and tomorrow the flies will leave Pharaoh and his officials and his people. Only be sure that Pharaoh does not act deceitfully again by not letting the people go to offer sacrifices to the Lord." Then Moses left Pharaoh and prayed to the Lord, and the Lord did what Moses asked. The flies left Pharaoh and his officials and his people, not a fly remained. But this time also Pharaoh hardened his heart and would not let the people go. So we have this pattern here also now of Pharaoh saying he'll do one thing when he's in trouble and then doing something else. Now, this is a familiar pattern. We've possibly all done this. Certainly we've seen people do this where in time of crisis they call out to God and they say, "Lord, if only you will do this, then I will change. Lord, if only you will do this, then I will do this." And when things get all better, it's easy for us to forget those promises, and that's what keeps happening to Pharaoh here. When he's in this crisis, when he's seeing the plagues, he sees the hand of God, he relents, and then he goes back on his word. And so things keep getting worse and worse and worse. We get the plague of livestock, and then of boils, and then of hail, and then finally of locusts and of darkness. And then Pharaoh finally says at the plague of darkness, "The Lord hardens Pharaoh's heart, and he is not willing to let them go." Pharaoh says to Moses, "Get out of my sight. Make sure you do not appear before me again. The day you see my face, you will die." And so finally there's one last plague, and that's the plague of the firstborn. And so Moses tells Pharaoh, "This is what the Lord says, about midnight I will go throughout Egypt. Every firstborn son in Egypt will die, from the firstborn son of the Pharaoh who sits on the throne to the firstborn son of the slave girl who is at her hand mill, and all the firstborn of the cattle as well. There will be a loud wailing throughout Egypt, worse than there has ever been or ever will be again. But among the Israelites not a dog will bark, or any man or animal. Then you will know that the Lord makes a distinction between Egypt and Israel." And then God gives specific instructions to Israel so that they would be spared from this plague of the firstborn, and we get Passover. And this is actually the story I wanted to get to this week. The Lord says to Moses and Aaron in Egypt, "This month is to be for you the first month of the year. Tell the whole community of Israel that on the 10th day of this month each man is to take a lamb for his family, one for every household. If any household is too small for a whole lamb, they must share one with their nearest neighbor, having taken into account the number of people there are. You are to determine the amount of lamb needed in according to what each person will eat. The animals you choose must be year-old males without defect, and you may take them from sheep or the goats. Take care of them until the 14th day of the month, when all the people of the community of Israel must slaughter them at twilight. Then they are to take some of the blood and put it on the sides and tops of the door frames of the houses where they eat the lambs. That same night they are to eat the meat roasted over the fire, along with bitter herbs and bread made without yeast. Do not eat the meat raw or cooked in water, but roasted over fire, heads, legs, and inner parts. Do not leave any of it till morning. If some is left till morning, you must burn it. This is how you are to eat it, with your cloak tucked in your belt, your sandals at your feet, and your staff in your hand. Eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. On that same night I will pass through Egypt and strike down every firstborn, both men and animals, and I will bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord. The blood will be a sign for you on the houses where you are, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you. No destructive plague will touch you while I strike Egypt." This is not the first time in the Old Testament where sacrifice is made. We get sacrifices way back as far as Cain and Abel. But this is a point at which sacrifice becomes very clear in terms of this blood of this lamb will cause God to do something different. You are covered in this blood. Your doorpost is covered with this blood, and when I see this blood, God says, I will pass over. I won't do to this house what I will do to the next house that doesn't have this covering of blood. It's a gory, gruesome thing, but this is the start of what will become a theme throughout the Bible, this protection by the blood of the Lamb. We'll pick up this theme again in the New Testament, but basically here, God is finally going to deliver the people from Egypt, And he's been planning this for years now, at least 80 years with the birth of Moses. And he's been going through 10 plagues, and then this is the day. And it's all planned out. This is what you're to eat. This is what you're to dress. This is what you're supposed to do. Get ready to go. Now's the time. But the one last thing, to protect yourselves so that this plague doesn't strike you, this perfect lamb needs to die. And you need to, with its blood, with the sign of its life, you need to mark your houses. We might very well wonder as we hear this story why 10 plagues and why Pharaoh couldn't ease up, or why God couldn't do something that didn't involve the death of the firstborn or the cattle, the flies, and all that mess. But what about these lambs? They have done nothing wrong, and yet somehow they're needed to get the people of Israel out of Egypt. These perfect lambs must die. And there's not yet, at this point in the story, an association between the death of this sacrifice and atonement, as we'll get pretty soon as we go on from this story. But we can see in this story that the means by which deliverance is coming is through this sacrifice. And we'll pick up that theme later on as we go through this. But that's where we'll end this particular episode. If you have any questions, send me an email at host@thebiblestudypodcast.com. And as always, thanks so much for listening.
The best and the brightest served up daily by the sharpest minds in content delivery, pod show, and limelight.
For some of us, personal finances aren't just personal. They include loved ones, neighbors, the communities we call home, and the causes we hold in our hearts. At Thrivent, planning your finances is bigger than just money. We help you put your plans into motion and faith into action so you can do more for the ones in your heart. Because sometimes all you need to make a difference is someone to help you make it happen. Thrivent, where money means more. Connect with us at Thrivent.com.